This is episode 2 with Kyle Stokes. Your challenges don't define you. However, how you choose to handle them does. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Laugh at Adversity podcast. I'm your host, Gary Savoy. Having overcome medical trauma, I've made it my mission to uncover all of the secrets to overcoming life's challenges and living a better life. Each week, I will bring you an inspiring person or message. You'll hear from some of the most inspirational people on this planet, including those who have overcome adversity firsthand. My goal is to provide you with everything you need to conquer your challenges and to turn your struggles into strengths. Hey guys, I'm really excited about today's show. I knew from our very first conversation that Kyle would be a perfect fit. He's just an incredibly inspiring individual, and he understands that all of the principles that he's learned from overcoming Erb's palsy can be applied to any obstacle in life. In this episode, we'll discuss how Kyle's been able to take ownership and pride of his Erb's palsy, and why we should never live our lives in someone else's hands. We also talk about why it's so easy to fall into the comparison trap, and the purpose behind the 1-in-1K community that Kyle is building. We also talk about the importance of visualizing hope and why you need to starve your fears. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Kyle Stokes. Hey Kyle, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's amazing to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. I'm really honored to have you. I think we connected a few months on Instagram, if I'm correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember if you reached out to me first or if I reached out to you. I don't remember which came first, but regardless, I was super impressed with your content when I saw your Instagram feed, and I just saw, the following you're building up and just the community you have, and I just felt drawn to that. So I'm super, super honored to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I reached out to you. Not sure how I came across you, but I was super inspired by watching some of your videos. And then as I was scrolling through your feed, I realized that you had Erb's palsy. And honestly, from your videos, I wasn't really sure what that was.
Yeah.
Do you mind explaining exactly what Erb's palsy is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Erb's palsy is an injury to the brachial plexus. And if you've never heard of the brachial plexus, I don't blame you. I probably would have never heard of it either if I didn't have Erb's palsy. So the brachial plexus is a group of nerves between the shoulder and the neck, right above the collarbone. And its primary purpose is to control the movement of the arm and the fingers. So when you injure the brachial plexus, you can injure it in different ways. And my particular way of injuring it is called Erb's palsy. And how that affects me is it has created permanent nerve damage in my right arm, which leads to an amount of paralysis. My right arm is shorter than my left arm. I have limited dexterity in my fingers. I can actually only raise my right arm. I really can just barely reach the top of my head when I raise my hand up as high as it can go. So yeah, it really affects the motor skills of the arm. And
so how is yours caused?
Yeah, so mine was actually caused at birth. And from what I understand, that is the most common form of Erb's palsy. So I was actually 12 pounds and 10 ounces at birth, which is a big deal for any baby, right? But especially considering my mother was 5'1". So unsurprisingly, I got stuck on the way out. And I was so stuck, the doctor was trying absolutely everything that he could to get me out. He was twisting and turning my head. He was using a whole array of tools and different things. And then he actually even had to resort to breaking my collarbone, or he attempted to break my collarbone, I should say. And all of that trauma and all of that struggle in that moment actually caused the injury to my brachial plexus, which resulted in Erb's palsy.
So it's interesting because you seem to have a good disposition over everything that the doctor tried. And I feel like it's almost natural to become resentful for what happened. But how have you been able to accept it?
Yeah, that's a powerful question because I feel like there are many people out there, and not just people who have Erb's palsy, but people that just have situations in their life that have been out of their control, situations that have happened to them that has nothing to do with them. It's just happened to them. Kind of the cards they've been dealt in life. And what I have been so motivated to see my particular situation as is not something that has power over me, but I am making the conscious decision to realize that no, I cannot change the fact that it happened to me, but I can change how I view it. I can change my response to it now. And my response to it now is that I have power over it. I'm not going to allow this to dictate my mental view anymore. I'm not going to allow this to dictate my emotions anymore. I'm going to take ownership over this and almost have a sense of pride about it. And then, and also saying that if we are living our life blaming someone else for what's happened to us, or living our life in someone else's hands, you will never grow as an individual living life that way. That's not fair to you. That's not fair to the people that are around you. Because your whole demeanor is going to be totally showing that in your life. If you are living your life at someone else's hands, you're not really going to be truly living to your full potential at that point. So that has played a huge part in my mindset.
I think that's such a powerful answer because it's so important, and I don't think people realize it enough, that any type of adversity that you face, your mindset plays just a significant role.
Yes, it does.
So can Erb's palsy, you mentioned that it happened to you at birth. Can it also happen after birth?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like any part of the body, any part of the body can be injured at any point in an individual's life, right? So, like I said, the most common cause of Erb's palsy is a birth-related injury, but you can actually injure the brachial plexus at any point in life. So I've actually talked to somebody on Instagram that they injured their brachial plexus in a car accident later on in their life. And you know what? I give the highest respect to that individual and other people like them, because me personally, I have never known what it's like to not have Erb's palsy. I've never known what it's like to have a fully functioning right arm and then, have it taken away from me. So if you're in that situation, and it doesn't have to be just Erb's palsy, but having some form of functionality and then have it taken away from you, and then still having the motivation and the inspiration to overcome that, man, I give you the highest respect if you're listening to this and you're in that situation. I really respect you for that.
Yeah, coming from someone who actually experienced, trauma later on in life, it's definitely a difficult challenge to go from a sense of normalcy to a different way of living. So we talked a little bit earlier about meeting you on Instagram, and one of the biggest things I noticed is how much you're into weightlifting.
Yeah.
So even with your injury, why did you choose weightlifting?
That's a hilarious question because I never thought I would be at this point in life. I'll give you a little bit more of a background then. So I graduated high school at 135 pounds, and I'm 5'11". My dad is 5'8". My mom is 5'1". So you add my small frame with my Erb's palsy on my right arm. And of course, the Erb's palsy affects the muscles, which causes muscle atrophy to occur. And my arm is shorter than my left arm and skinnier. At this point, I had not worked out at all. And not only that, I also, and some of you may not be familiar with what this is, so I'll explain it. I also have something called pectus excavatum, which basically means your sternum is kind of concaved in a little bit, and it causes my ribs to poke out more so than the usual person or whatever. And so it's the combination of all these three that, believe it or not, I actually had people make comments about me saying, "You have anorexia. You're so skinny." And, that's painful. Obviously, I didn't have anorexia. And it's so easy to feel self-conscious with all of those things coming together in your life. I was skinny. I just didn't feel I just didn't feel confident in myself. I didn't feel strong. So I lived life this way, and I think it's a result of all of this that I really didn't live a very active lifestyle at all. I was really drawn to living life indoors, kind of a homebody. I was really drawn to technology, actually, computers and electronics, video games, all those kind of things. Really living life inside, and I lived this way for most of my life up until about 2013. And that's a really transformational year for me. Very surprising change. And what was going on in my life at that time was I came to a point in life where I really needed to figure out where my life was going. I was examining what I was currently doing, which I was attending a university. I had a internship lined up for the summer to be a software developer. And I was just very confused, if you will. I didn't know where my life was headed. So I ended up withdrawing from the university. I ended up withdrawing from the internship. And during this time, a lot of growth, a lot of anxiety from uncertainty, even depression, things like that. And out of the blue, seemingly, I decided to go for a jog on a treadmill. And it's a little surprising, considering my background, but I will say that my dad has always been a very active man. And growing up around his influence, I think definitely did play a part in this. He was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, so it wouldn't be uncommon to see him go for a jog or do some push-ups or even pick up some weights and do some curls or something. And so, yeah, this day I just decided to go for a jog on the treadmill. And that jog on the treadmill turned into a jog and sit-ups. And then the jog and sit-ups turned into jog, sit-ups, and now push-ups. And then not too long after that, I started looking up home workouts online, and I purchased my own weights and purchased my own protein powder online. And I was doing this for a period of probably 3 to 4 months, just at home. And what's so cool is I was actually seeing progress because I was being so consistent with my workouts. And my dad seeing this, I lived at home at the time, and my dad seeing this said, "Hey, Kyle, a guy at work convinced me to join the gym. And I've seen how much progress you're putting at home. I'm seeing your results. Why don't you try and check out the gym with me?" And obviously, hearing that, I felt very intimidated by that thought. I think it's a very intimidating thing for anybody to join the gym for the first time, especially if you've either never been in the gym or been in the gym once for gym class or something, which was the case for me at that point. And and honestly, ever since then, it blew up. It just really got a hold of me, and I haven't left the gym since.
I would imagine going from your home workouts to a gym must have been a big step for you.
Yes, absolutely. It was a huge step. A huge step. Going into the gym, well, obviously working out at home, it's just you and your thoughts. With Erb's palsy, I have to adapt exercises a lot differently than what the normal workout would look like. I have to adapt it to my specific body to hit the muscles in the way that they're intended to be hit. I have to overcome that nerve damage. And so I can work all that out at home without the pressure, if you will, of somebody else that I do not know and have never met before looking at me. It's just me and my my family and my pets, right?
Yeah.
But then going to the gym, that's a whole nother world, right? You're around, not only are you around machines you've never used before, but you're around people that you've never met before. So there's so many layers of uncertainty there, especially if you're lacking confidence in yourself. So yeah, that was a huge transition.
Right. And I can imagine, going to the gym, it must have been challenging at first, considering there are bigger guys there and they're doing exercises differently than you. And I can imagine it might have been a bit tough, emotionally and mentally for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that I've had to actively overcome. And I have actually gained a lot of strength from that weakness. So I'll tell you that it's so easy to fall into a comparison trap, no matter who you are, whether you have Erb's palsy or not, or you're dealing with something else in your life, whether you're male or female, whoever you are, the fact that you are a human being tells me that you're going to deal with comparison. And what that looked like for me is here I am having to adapt an exercise a particular way that really can look a little bit funky to the average gym goer. And I'm not the biggest guy. I'm smaller framed, like I said. And then looking over to the guy next to me, he's big, he's doing the exercise how it's intended to be. And it can be so easy to have those thoughts of like, man, like why does this have to happen to me? Why do I have to deal with this? Here's this guy, I just wish I could be in his shoes, right? And then that comparison starts to seep in of, man, and I'll never look like that, or just starting to feel down on yourself. But that, I can tell you from experience, is literally draining you of your abilities. It's draining you of your potential. It's literally life draining you. And that's not fair for you to compare yourself to somebody else, because they are not you and you are not them. And it's not fair for them to compare themselves to you. You can only compare yourself to who you used to be. And now at this point, so like I said, I started working out in 2013. It's 2017 now. So 4 years, I'm finally at a point now where I can look back at my progress. I have old pictures of me. And if you want to see some crazy transformation photos of my personal progress, check out the Instagram. It's at Kyle Stokes. And you'll be able to see the fact that I can now compare myself to who I used to be. And not only that physical change has occurred, but that physical change occurred because an inner change occurred in my mind and in my emotions and just in my drive to overcome.
So I want to touch on that inner drive, because there are people that struggle with going to the gym that don't have an obstacle such as yours. So even with your obstacle, what motivates you to keep going?
Wow. So there are many motivators in my life to keep going. But honestly, at this point, the biggest motivator in my life is a realization that what I'm doing is no longer just affecting myself. I'm past the point of hiding away, working out at my house, away from anybody. I'm in the public view now at the gym, and even I don't know if someone next to me or on the treadmill, whoever, is going to be looking at me struggling to push up some weight, trying to overcome my nerve damage or adapt. And I don't know the impact that that's going to have on that person. They may have needed to see that. Or, if I share one of my stories or something, or just a workout I did and the struggles I've had with it for that day on Instagram or on YouTube or whatever, I don't know the impact that that's going to have. And I can tell you that that is the biggest motivator in my life right now.
So you mentioned YouTube and your motivation. I think I've seen some of your YouTube videos and you're helping other people with workouts who also have Erb's palsy. And I would imagine just seeing the community that is starting to follow you and look to you for guidance and inspiration, I would assume that is definitely helping you out with your motivation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been really cool. I've only been doing this for about 2.5 months, almost 3 months at this point. And I've heard from people all over, even internationally. So I'm based in Ohio in the United States, and I've heard from people in the Netherlands. It's kind of crazy. So the editor of this Erb's Palsy magazine in the Netherlands reached out to me and said, hey, I found your video on YouTube of you doing your bicep curl with your arm, and I have Herbs Palsy as well. I'm the editor of this magazine. And I just wanted you to know like how much that has inspired me and just our group. And I shared your video in our group on Facebook. And I want to know if you'll write an article for our magazine. And so just that knowledge that what I have just decided to do is making impact overseas in some country, you know what I mean? That's amazing. I've also been privileged to connect with a teacher over in England, and he also has Herbs palsy. And he asked me to record a video for his school's assembly. And he not only featured my story, but he featured other people's stories with Herbs palsy. And that's just so incredible to see the such tangible results, you know. And yeah, it's just awesome.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to see that your purpose has extended from just you and your workouts and your obstacle to motivating others. And I think it's just amazing the community that you've built, especially with the community of 1 in 1K. And what is your purpose behind 1 in 1K, and what exactly is it?
So 1 in 1K stands for 1 in 1,000. And where that name comes from is the fact that Herbs palsy happens in around 1 in 1,000 people. And I started this. I started the workout videos. I started the motivational posts. I started it to really connect with other people like me. A few years ago, I actually went online and I tried to find someone that was in similar position as myself, someone who was really, really trying to go hard in the gym and to see results, but was struggling with Herbs palsy. And I really couldn't find anybody. I really couldn't find anybody. You know, there may have been a question in a forum somewhere, but other than that, I wasn't seeing someone consistently create content for that community. And so it took me a few years to realize this, but I came to the realization that there's no reason I shouldn't be the one to start something like this. So I just decided to create this community that is dedicated to empowering and educating other people with brachial plexus injuries, and not only in the gym, but just in life in general, to change the mindset. But then what's been happening, and I'm in total agreement with this, is that the principles behind 1 in 1K not only are applicable to people with Herbs palsy or brachial plexus injury, it literally applies to anybody. And that message is, you know, regardless of who you are, you have an obstacle in your path. You know, it may not be a physical obstacle such as Herbs palsy, but it may be a mental obstacle or an emotional one, or financial or marital, you know, relationships, or maybe it's an academic obstacle for you in your life, or it may be a combination of them, because we're all humans and we all have issues and things that we deal with. But you have to come to the realization that those are obstacles. They're an adversity in your life, and you can overcome them. You can adapt to them so that you can go over them or around them or through them, but it is possible to overcome them.
I think that's such an important point that you just made, because just because you have Herbs palsy and just because I suffered from, you know, chronic pain, it doesn't mean we can't help people with, you know, mental challenges or emotional challenges or relationship challenges. A lot of the same principles that have allowed us to heal and to turn our pain into purpose can be applied to many other aspects of life.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I know you mentioned that 1 in 1K is still in its early infancy, but I feel like it's growing pretty well. What is your reaction to the amount of traffic that you're receiving?
Man, it's humbling, honestly. It's just incredible to be able to help in any way, shape, or form someone who I can deeply relate with. And it's just I don't even know how to answer that entirely. It's a very humbling experience, and I'm just so thankful. And not only that, but I'm so excited to see how it continues to grow. And I just know that the reach is too small at this point, because there are so many other people that need to hear the message. And not only with 1 in 1K, but I know that you and I, Gary, are in agreement with this message, with Laugh at Adversity as well. And there's so many people that need to hear that message. And I believe that there are people out there that also want to share their story, and they have no idea, how many people they're going to be able to impact and further inspire by them sharing their story. And so it's kind of like compound interest, it builds on itself. The more people that hear about it, the more people are going to be inspired, and the more it's going to spread and grow. And I just welcome that, and I'm very excited for where it's at right now and where it continues to grow.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. And, I think it's probably amazing too for you, because you mentioned a few years ago when you were looking for someone who was also trying to start working out with Herbs Palsy and you couldn't find anyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, just think now when people are researching and looking for someone with Herbs Palsy and looking for workouts, I mean, they find you.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it just feels almost unbelievable, to think that I would be in a position like that, but it's awesome. And I welcome it. And I'm very thankful to be in that position.
So for people that are, really inspired with this episode and trying to connect with you, where can they reach you?
So I would say the main place where I post my content is Instagram, and my handle is just at Kyle Stokes. And then I also post on YouTube. I post some workout videos I'm doing, also motivational content on YouTube. And then I have a personal Facebook as well, just facebook.com/Stokes Kyle. Also, I should say my YouTube URL is youtube.com/C/Kyle Stokes.
And I would highly recommend anyone who's listening, whether you also have Herbs Palsy or you know someone with Herbs Palsy, or if you're just looking for inspiration and motivation, I would highly recommend to check out Kyle's YouTube and Instagram accounts, which I will be including all of the links in the show notes, which you can access at laughatadversity.com/2. So Kyle, these are the last two questions that I like to ask everybody. The first one is, what is your definition of adversity and what does it mean to you?
That's a really good question. And I feel that we definitely, went there. And it really is to me that adversity to me is the same as an obstacle. And that really no matter who you are, you're going to have adversity in your life. You're going to have an obstacle in your life. So again, that may not look like my adversity in my life with Herbs Palsy. That could look like something completely different for you. Maybe your adversity is you have really considered walking out of your marriage, or maybe you've really considered dropping out of college, or maybe your adversity is just your family dynamic is absolutely horrible and you wish it could be better. So it can come in so many different forms, but regardless, those obstacles, that adversity can be overcome. And it really takes a change in the mindset first before you see it manifest physically.
I can completely agree with you. I mean, the first step is changing your perspective and changing your mindset, because without your mind, you are powerless.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. Absolutely.
So the last question I have for you, with everything that you've learned from the obstacles that you've been able to overcome and the journey that you've been on so far, what are 3 tips that you could give someone who is facing adversity right now?
That's good. So 3 tips. I would say tip number 1 is visualize your hope. Like we were just talking about, you have to have that inner change first before you see it manifest physically. So, and then you also can't forget that your thoughts become things. And if you're so focused inwardly on, your adversity that you can't see past that, how are you ever going to get past that? How are you ever going to grow past it or through it? You have to start visualizing hope in your mind, the realization that this can change, that this doesn't have to have lasting power over you, but that you can have power over it. And that change can happen in your life. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is with adversity comes fear, right? A lot of
Yes.
times that's the case. A lot of times that's the case. And I've heard it said that fear stands for false evidence appearing real. And I think that is so powerful because so many times we find ourselves in the midst of our obstacles, in the midst of our adversity, and we feel so much fear that it's never going to change or that we're never going to be able to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
But why are we so afraid of something that we don't even know is the case? Why are we feeling stressed? Why are we anxious about something that we don't even know is true or not? You know? So get beyond that fear. Stop being afraid. Stop fearing over your situation. Start visualizing your hope, clearing away that fear. Seriously, starve fear in your life. Once you start doing that, you're going to be able to see things differently, see things a lot more clearly.
Wow.
So that is tip number two. And then lastly, tip number three, I'm going to start by giving an example. So what if I told you, if you are listening and you are, let's say, interested in business or an entrepreneur of any sort, what if I told you, if you give me your email, tomorrow, I'm going to have Mark Cuban, the billionaire on Shark Tank, contact you, and I'm going to have him arrange a meeting with you so that he's going to listen very intently with your business idea, and he's going to share all of his years of knowledge, his wealth of understanding, and all of the lessons that he's learned throughout his life on how to grow a business. And if you walked out of that meeting and said, "Thank you, Mr. Cuban, I appreciate your time," and you left and you did not apply a single thing that he told you to your life, let me ask you, how effective would that meeting be at that point? Or let me give you another example.
Not very.
Not at all, right? So let me give you another example. If you're sitting in class at college or university or high school, wherever you're at in life, and the teacher is giving you a lesson, and so you're learning, but then the teacher never gives you a time to test what you've learned. The teacher never gives you homework to apply what you've learned. The teacher never gives you a quiz or any projects or anything like that to actually apply the knowledge that you've learned. So if you haven't figured it out yet, what I'm trying to say here is that our problem in today's society is not a lack of information. We live in the most information dense time in history. 100 years ago, the only real source of information was either a fellow human being that you were able to meet in person, or having access to some books, and really truly only the wealthy had access to large libraries. So we live today where literally we can access any amount of information in a second, literally at our fingertips. The problem we have today is not information, but application. It's taking what we've learned either through the internet or through a podcast like this, and then applying it to our life. That's the difficulty today. And so tip number three is perhaps the most important tip of all. And I am just advocating you. I am just strongly encouraging you to not only hear the things that have been discussed today on this podcast, but to apply it to your life. Because it's useless. You might as well not have even listened to this podcast if you're not going to try to apply it to your life in some way, shape, or form. So tip number one is visualize that hope. Tip number two is to overcome the fear in your life, starve your fears. And then tip number three is to take what you have heard in this podcast and what you continue to hear from Laugh at Adversity and apply it to your life. And your life will change once you start doing that.
That is so powerful. It's just amazing because you're right. We live in an amazing era where technology allows knowledge to be right at our fingertips. And I feel too often we're using it for all the wrong things. And we don't apply it enough. So that third tip is just amazing and so powerful. I just want to thank you for everything that you do, for how far you've come and how you're impacting all of these other people's lives with 1 in 1K and inspiring others from more than just someone who has Erb's palsy and has overcome it, but all of the other people that you were inspiring and motivating and impacting their lives. I just want to take a moment to thank you for everything that you're doing and everything that you're going to be doing. It's just amazing.
Well, I can only say thank you very much, and I feel the same way about what you're doing here on this podcast and your website and your blog and your Instagram. You're reaching many people, and you're absolutely making a difference and an impact in so many people's lives. And you know what? I mean, I truly believe that you may not even see the full extent of the change that you're making right now. It may come a generation or two after you, but it is happening, and I'm just honored to be a part of it in any way.
If you guys enjoyed today's show with Kyle, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Also, if you want to do your part in creating a lasting impact and help others, please go to iTunes and leave a review. That's the easiest way for the show to appear to others and help them change their lives.